Shabbat Shalom. After 430 years of living in Egypt, it's not all that surprising that the Israelites had some identity issues to work out prior to their exodus. Having lived so long in the diaspora, their level of observance had wavered. As a commentator Rashi notes on today's Torah reading, as God passed over the Hebrews, they knew not a single commandment by which God could redeem them. So too their faith, not surprisingly, had also faltered. In Rashi's words, Hayushtufim be'avodah zarah, they were drenched, dripping, literally, in idolatry. Not their patterns of observance, not their faith, not even the communal definition of the community was as pure as we might like to think. Among the departing Hebrews, the Torah explains there was an Erev Rav, a mixed multitude amongst them, non-Hebrews counted in the family of Israel. None of this, given the hundreds of years in Egypt, is terribly surprising. What is surprising is that just prior to their departure, between the new month of Nisan, which we announced today, and the 14th day of Nisan, the Passover itself, the Israelites were granted and took on the opportunity to enter the covenant of the Jewish people. 2 weeks, that was all they had. That was all they needed to enter the covenant of the Jewish people, a massive and rapid transformation in identity, which to this day is memorialized in the blessing we recite over every baby boy as he's welcomed into the covenant of the Jewish people. Much has changed since our greatest generation was liberated from Egypt. But the challenges and opportunities that come with a post-emancipation mixed multitude remains ours to address. Ours is an age in which the nature of Jewish identity and the boundaries of communal definition are becoming more, not less complicated. The numbers speak for themselves. Some 70% of non-Orthodox marrying Jews getting married to a non-Jew. The age-old definition of defining Jewish identity by way of the mother, upended decades ago by the decision of the Reform movement to accept patrilineal descent. Whatever the conventions of Jewish definition may have once been, any study of Jewish demography makes clear that Jewish identity is shifting from an objective, top-down, religious or inherited definition to a subjective, bottom-up matter of cultural, ethnic, or other identification. Jews by religion, Jews by no religion, Madonna-like non-Jews who quite like the Jewish religion, and a whole lot of other categories of which our ancestors could have never imagined. Ours is the age of Ancestry.com. The pie chart of Jewish DNA is getting more porous, and the question of who does and who doesn't constitute the Jewish community and who does and doesn't get to decide more fluid. And in this world of shifting terrain, one constant remains, and that constant is love. Love is a powerful thing, and time and again young people find themselves, as a song from Fiddler on the Roof goes, wanting to build a home with a person not from the home they love. As a rabbi, this conversation is not a matter of theory, but of deep personal and pastoral consequence. More than the sociology and statistics are the real-life stories that walk into my office all the time. What to do when a child of our congregation wants to marry a non-Jew? Or, as is increasingly the case, when a child of our congregation has fallen in love with a patrilineal Jew who grew up in a Reform synagogue, had a bar mitzvah, and participated in youth groups and birthright. Am I really expected to tell him or her that she isn't Jewish and must convert for me to officiate? Or when a woman descended from a family from the former Soviet Union, whose Jewish origins lay buried under decades of communist rule, walks into my office seeking to reconnect with her past, am I really to tell her that her Jewish journey is less authentic than others? or when a child born to a non-Jewish mother enters our congregational school and out of love for this community and the Jewish people want to celebrate her bat mitzvah on this bima, would I dare derail that child's emergent Jewish identity by suggesting that she isn't really Jewish? As a rabbi, I have a commitment to uphold Jewish law. And as such, as I stated 2 weeks ago, that means not officiating at intermarriages. As a rabbi, I also have an obligation to meet people where they are and serve the Jewish future by helping build Jewish identity. Decades from now, when my talit hangs in the rafters of this sanctuary, there should be more, not less, Jewish homes by way of my efforts. So what, you may ask, is a conservative rabbi, is your rabbi to do? It's a question that, as many of you know, I've been wrestling with for some years. And today I want to offer a proposal for communal consideration, and for anyone listening, the conservative movement as a whole. By my read of the sources, from the Talmudic period onward, there's an established position permitting conversion to Judaism by way of mikveh immersion for a woman, and for a man, circumcision and mikveh immersion in a mikveh when coupled with a course of study. A mikveh, for those who do not know, is a bath used for the purpose of ritual immersion, be it to follow the laws of family purity, spiritual preparation for the Sabbath or holidays, life cycle transitions, ritualizing loss, recovery, or the need for healing, or conversion to Judaism. Mikveh immersion is a Jewish act ritualizing a sacred transformation from one state or stage to another. For the conversion of newborns or minors, of course, a course of study is waived, the act of being called up as a bar or bat mitzvah signaling a willed acceptance of his or her Jewish identity. The duration and content of study is not specified, merely to teach the would-be Jew some of the strict and lenient commandments, along with the obligations and misfortunes that can accompany being a Jew. Furthermore, on the question of the degree to which that would-be convert Jew must be observant of the totality of Jewish law, in Hebrew, Kabbalat ol mitzvot, there exist multiple opinions amongst respected authorities, ranging from comprehensive observance to a sincere assent to the ideal of living an observant Jewish life. It is because I am eyes wide open to the demography of American Jewry. It is because my read of the tradition is what it is. And it is because everything I do as a rabbi is done on behalf of the Jewish future. I believe that the same body of Jewish law that restricts me to officiate only at weddings of one Jew to another must also be leveraged towards a maximally embracing approach as to who is or isn't a Jew according to Jewish law. Given the stakes, we invoke the rabbinic principle, kocha de hetera adif, the power of rendering a lenient position is preferable. In a world where there are no guarantees regarding who our children will fall in love with, it's incumbent upon us to lower, not raise, the barriers of entry to being a Jew. As I stated several years ago, when I join a gym, they don't tell me to get in shape and then join. They say join and then we'll get you in shape. So too with rabbis and would-be Jews. If a non-Jew desires to build a Jewish home with a Jewish partner, my job is to nurture that desire, to draw them close, and to make the on-ramp to Jewish life inviting and doable as possible. How long should that process take? That is up to the discretion of the sponsoring rabbi. I've yet to meet a non-Jew who is so cavalier about the manner by which they were raised, the faith of their parents, their future spouse, and most of all, their own integrity, that they have walked into my office and asked to be converted the following day. It is by way of a warm and invested sense of rabbinic mentorship, strong curriculum, and earnest communal engagement that Jewish identity takes hold, and not by some magic number of classes. As for the argument that only by being fully observant may one convert, we would do well to acknowledge that this is a self-affirming criteria imposed upon the Jewish world by those who would limit the definition of what it means to be a Jew only to those who are fully observant, a definition that devalues the Jewish authenticity of pretty much everyone in this room. Jewish identity can be measured by observance, but it can also be measured by way of culture, nationality, communal affiliation, and otherwise. In our community and like-minded communities, we must invest in outreach, education, and programming towards creating as many pathways to Jewish life and living, all with the aim of bringing the maximum number of people into the definition of a Jew as defined by Jewish law. The conservative movement should be the movement of conversion. That should be our mission. There is a need to be met, a market share to be had, were we to have the courage and wherewithal to do so. And now it gets interesting. As to the question of patrilineal Jews, Jews of uncertain descent, and any other shades of Jewish identity, I propose that mikveh immersion become a requirement for rabbinic officiation at the chuppah. As it stands now, as Charles and Lindsay can attest, if you want me to officiate at your wedding, I require brides and grooms to get genetic testing, to see a couples counselor, and be a member or a child of a member of this synagogue. From this point on, we add a requirement. Regardless of whether or not you can trace your lineage back to Moses, you immerse in a mikveh. I did it before I got married. It was an incredibly powerful experience that enabled me to reflect on my past and prepare for the exciting chapter to come. A transformative rituals that many brides and grooms remember as a most spiritually inspired aspect of their wedding preparation. Such a stringency, which is really a leniency, would additionally serve the purpose of leveling the playing field of Jewish identity, much in the same way, incidentally, Israel should have done when hundreds of thousands of Jews of mixed descent emigrated from the former Soviet Union. No vetting, no making someone feel less than, the same rule applied to all. An affirmation to create a Jewish home, mikveh immersion, everyone equal in the eyes of Jewish law. And so too with our children. Every child who wants to celebrate their bar or bat mitzvah here at Park Avenue Synagogue, matrilineal, patrilineal, my kid, or anyone else's, all of them take a dip in the mikveh. A colleague of mine has successfully instituted this policy in her synagogue, and it's transformed not just the B'nai Mitzvah process, but the culture of her community. Once a month, the children on deck for their upcoming B'nai Mitzvah immerse in the mikveh, thus announcing that theirs is a Jewish identity derived not merely by way of accident of birth, but as a willed choice to be a stakeholder in the Jewish people and Jewish destiny. For those whose identity is not in question, it will be a day they will long remember, certainly as much as the rabbi's words on the bima or the obligatory game of Coke and Pepsi at their party. So too for those whose Jewish past ask of them to affirm their commitment to the Jewish future. It is a beautiful ritual of affirmation with the added benefit of dotting the I's and crossing the T's of their identity for their B'nai Mitzvah and the remainder of their lives. It's a policy which, if adopted by the world Jewry, would over time obviate the question of who is and who isn't a Jew by the time these B'nai Mitzvah kids are ready to get married. There is much more to say and details to be provided, but in broad brushstrokes, what I am recommending for our community is as follows. 1, a conversion process whose length is left to the discretion of the sponsoring rabbi. 2, a requirement that all couples married by Park Avenue rabbis immerse in the mikveh. 3, a requirement that all children wishing to be B'nai Mitzvah'd in this community immerse in the mikveh. It's a policy that enables us to affirm our position on intermarriage while being as humanly and halachically embracing as possible to the would-be Jew. It is not, to be clear, a policy that meets the needs of every interfaith relationship. As I stated 2 weeks ago, there are a million good reasons why a non-Jew may not want to convert to Judaism. Nevertheless, this policy, all the more so if coupled with strong education offerings and robust engagement with interfaith couples, enables us as a community to sleep peacefully, knowing we are doing everything we can in spirit and in deed to meet people where they are, having left it all out on the field, all the while remaining within the bounds of Jewish law. Will those to our religious right accept our conversions? Of course not, but they never did and they do not now. I actually do believe that if the collective arms of the Jewish world would embrace such an inclusive approach to Jewish identity, it may, in the long term, bear the potential to shift the politics on the age-old question of who is a Jew, redounding to the benefit of the Jewish people as a whole. One final, not insignificant matter. Like all big ideas, this one comes with a price tag. For this idea to fly, I need your support. Not just communal acceptance of the policy, not just political support should it come under fire, but actual support by way of actual capital. We need educators, lay and professional, on hand to model for people how to live Jewish lives. We need introduction to Judaism classes, conversion classes, one-on-one mentoring. We need a rabbinic bench deep enough to handle all the intakes and weddings and mikveh visits that would come our way were we to become the central address in Manhattan on this effort. Proud as I am of our hardworking team, our staff is not presently poised to take this on. And to make this happen, I need your support. And yes, were we to be serious, really serious about this idea, we need to build a mikveh. Chicago, Los Angeles, Boston, and elsewhere, non-Orthodox communities have a mikveh at their disposal. And it is nothing short of astonishing that Manhattan does not. You can clap. Our present use of the Orthodox mikveh, while workable, is far from optimal. Moreover, the glaring absence of a mikveh in our community represents, in my mind, an incalculable and increasing number of missed opportunities to bring spiritual uplift and embrace to so many Jews at a critical passage of their lives. A center for Jewish inclusion, humming with classes day and night, staffed to meet the needs of our community with a mikveh in its basement. It is a dream that can only happen, that will only happen by way of your buy-in and support. HaChodesh hazeh lachem Roshei Chodashim. This month shall mark for you the beginning of months. Today we announce the new month of Nisan, and with it, Passover just a few weeks away. Soon enough, we'll sit down at our Seder tables and declare, Kol dichvin yeteh ve'yachol. All who are hungry, come find a seat and be satisfied. This year, let our focus to include those possessed with a spiritual hunger and desire to sit at the table of our people. If nothing else, Passover reminds us that every child, wise, wicked, simple, and even the one who does not know how to ask, has a seat reserved for them. No different than the Israelites of old, let us fulfill our obligation to bring as many as we can into the narrative and covenant of our people, and in so doing fulfill our obligation to the Jewish past by building a very bright and inclusive Jewish future. Shabbat Shalom.